has shaken hands with paradise.
Be water, my friend.
Lights out, away we go.
Hello guys, and welcome to episode 2 of the ITSO podcast. Today we're trying to do a virtual sort of, remote podcast as opposed to our first one. We'll try and sort of intersperse this as we sort of go forward working all of this out. So we've got a couple of big sporting events that have just happened and passed, and we'll sort of be discussing those today. And Julian doesn't have any idea of what these topic lists are. He probably heard me muttering them, but we'll try and get through them quite quickly, try and make this about a 30-minute episode. So let's start with the big news for me as a Djokovic fan is Djokovic wins his 22nd Grand Slam to tie Nadal, and I would say continue to cement his place in history, in tennis history. So just to put where we stand, so I place Djokovic as my GOAT. I think Julian puts Federer as his GOAT in tennis.
Yeah,
and so
that would be correct.
And so let's just have a little talk about it. Did you watch the final? Did you watch the highlights? What did you think about it? And what do you think going forward is going to happen?
Well, I don't tend to keep updated with like the Australian Open and, in my opinion, slightly smaller Grand Slams.
Oh yes, Julian does refer to the Australian Open as the Mickey Mouse Grand Slam, by the way. Don't make me pull up your text.
Well, the Mickey Mouse in the last couple of years for sure, but when the top four were at it, it was far from the Mickey Mouse.
Okay, fine.
Grand Slam.
Back. Fine.
But at the same time, I think I have to give credit to Djokovic. He just keeps pushing and just keeps holding the level that he's continued for a substantial amount of time. He's been able to stay there and thereabouts at the level that he's been for years. And the fact that he has now been able to match Nadal's record is absolutely incredible. So I can't take that away from him. He does cement himself as one of the greatest tennis players in his generation, and probably in many other generations, right?
Yeah. So I think what's interesting between the big three is, I'm going to try this thing where I sort of bring up the window. And so obviously the big three, we've got all the stats and we've got Statista. Obviously, especially when Murray was there and it was the big four getaway ad, like you could just see here like the number of like dominant performances. So Julian, you can't see this, but it's basically a graph showing all of the Grand Slams, right?
Yeah.
And I would say what's very interesting is a sports psychologist talked about this as well. And I think for me, the reason why I've placed Djokovic as, my GOAT is because of the adversity he's gone through to get to where he is, how controversial it was. So there's a clip going around where like basically his banning from the Australian Open in 2022 was a very political move. And say what I don't agree with any of his takes on like, what he puts into his body and his take on vaccines and anything like that. I don't agree with that. But I do disagree that when your rules say you could come into the country and then you make an example out of someone by going against your own rules for a political move, I think that's wrong, right? And I think the freedom to choose is one of the rights of being an individual, especially in the West. So I think what they did to him last year was wrong. I don't like, and that's beside the point. I think he's using that as motivation, to be honest, to sort of like, spur him on. I would say that I think Djokovic is most likely going to end up with the statistics of being the GOAT. As in, I think Nadal's body is breaking down more than Djokovic is, despite Djokovic. Did you hear, Julian, what his actual injury was?
Nadal's?
No, Djokovic's. So Nadal had an abdominal tear, I think, right? And it was confirmed. Or wasn't confirmed.
Djokovic seemed to have he taped up his hamstring, but interestingly, after his semi-final, he finished very strong in that match, and there was an interview straight after on courtside and I don't remember who it was. It was a legend of the sport that was interviewing him and asked how he's feeling, and he said, "Well, it very much looks like my injury has healed, considering how strong I finished." Now, I don't know how true that was, but he that was definitely something he pointed out. So I'm not aware how to the extent of his injuries.
So let me tell you. So I'm bringing this up. So this guy, so Craig Tiley, right, who is the CEO of Tennis Australia. So he's basically in charge of Australian tennis. I just brought it up. So he basically saw the MRI scan, and Djokovic had a confirmed 3 centimeter hamstring tear on the MRI. So a legit tear, as in like when he wasn't sort of, you're lagging a little bit. Are you moving or talking?
Yeah. Am I lagging?
Okay, yeah, it just lagged for a second.
Oh, okay. You lagged as well.
So we'll try and cut that out. But essentially, so he has a confirmed injury, right? And it's an injury that Craig Tiley said would definitely have put 97% of like players out. There's no way that he should have been able to win the tournament with that tear. The other aspect of it is, if you watch his matches, so Djokovic is, to me, known as somebody who's a grinder, right? So a lot of his games, he fights through 4 sets, 5 sets, right? And he plays normally a very defensive style, especially with young people, because like they're very offensive. But throughout this whole Open, he completely changed his like, because he was making short points. He wasn't trying to like long the points out and wear his opponent down because he's got an injury. And I think that's really impressive. I think that's like shows a level of adaptability that I think comes with experience and age, that I think the other tennis players, like especially Tsitsipas in the final, like just weren't expecting. Because Djokovic for the past couple of years, like he fights a defensive style, especially against like Nadal, right? People with big offensive weapons, young people who are faster, right? He tries to wear them down. But in this, like you just saw him, like he dropped 1 set in the whole tournament with a 3 centimeter tear in his hamstring. Like I think that's like commendable. I think that's almost like now impossible to do.
That's something he sustained during the Australian Open?
No, he sustained it in a tournament in Adelaide, I think, like just before the Australian Open.
And was it as bad as that initially, or did it get worse during the competition?
No, he had it before the tournament. He was trying to physio his way through it, but then during the Australian Open, he tore it worse, right, and became a 3 centimeter tear. And put because me and Julian have had this argument before, right, that like basically this was a Mickey Mouse tournament because basically there was no real big like threats, right? And I agree, and it kind of strengthens Julian's point because basically Djokovic won this tournament with 1 leg essentially. Like literally he like won this with 1 leg, and like he had no practice because he's got a tear, he did no practice sessions between like days, so he didn't go hitting ever. He just finished the game, went physio, took painkillers, and went to sleep. He didn't hit on the courts, and he still won. And I'm like, that's pretty impressive. And it should scare everybody. I think it should. Like, do you think, like, this is dreams for me, right? So Djokovic has been my GOAT forever before he won a Grand Slam. But do you think he has a chance at the Grand Slam this year? The proper Grand Slam? So
the one that Medvedev stopped him from getting in 2021 US Open, and the guy that did not take part in the Australian Open because of the fact that he's Russian. Yeah. Which probably would have made a massive difference. So, I personally think it depends. If Medvedev is in any of the upcoming tournaments, which
he's not going to make it to the Wimbledon one, the American one. Djokovic might not even make it to the American one.
So not the French, not Wimbledon,
he might make
not
French.
US.
Medvedev might be able to go to French.
But his French record, the best record, well, his quarterfinal was his best finish, and he lost against Tsitsipas, whatever his name is. Tsitsipas, yeah.
So this is the thing. Depending on Nadal's condition, I genuinely think this year Nadal is the only threat to Djokovic, but he has to recover, and he's got an abdominal strain, and I think that's much harder to recover from than a hamstring tear. Just because
and the French Open is coming up quick and fast, right?
Not really. It's in May. He's got 3 months.
He's got time. Okay, fair enough.
So I don't know. I think Djokovic has a chance. I think if Djokovic gets the Grand Slam, it's kind of debate over for like GOAT status.
There is a lot of tennis to be played till that happens.
I agree.
Let's not forget about that. And I Actually, I like Djokovic.
No, you
I'm a
don't.
support. I am a supporter of him.
Don't
but
make
I
me
do.
pull up text, man. You hate him.
I do want to say that he's basically Ronaldo and Roger is Messi. But the only difference is, I was going to say there's a difference, but there isn't actually. They're very, very similar in terms of stats, right? One has won slightly more Grand Slams. The other has won slightly more ATP titles, right?
No.
So, or is it the same? Or is it more?
No, Djokovic has statistically won more ATP titles than anybody else. He's won the same as Grand Slams as Nadal. Obviously, Federer's retired. So statistically, apart from the gold medal that Nadal got in the Olympics, Djokovic has statistically got or beaten Federer and Nadal in all statistics.
I thought I saw a stat before Federer retired that he was actually still leading the ATP title list, but I might be wrong.
That might have been a couple of years ago, but he's retired since.
Yeah.
Right? And Djokovic has won a few in between.
Yeah.
So Djokovic
Yeah,
I think,
fair
is
enough.
68 or something. So, but yeah, what's interesting actually is obviously like so for us we've kind of flipped positions. So if you saw our last podcast, I'm a Messi supporter, and like Julian is a Ronaldo supporter. And, well, as in like
not exactly.
not supporter, but like, you know, previously when it was actually a debate, right?
Yeah.
Like recent times, going to Al Nassr.
I like to hold my views on him higher than maybe some others because I respect both, and I don't like to compare because it's so close.
But anyways, point is, congratulations to Ronaldo for scoring 4 goals against some some Arabian team. Okay, like it's like honestly, like congratulations. Like I think that ends the debate. Like, you know, you can't really be out here like furthering your argument if you're in that league. But when it was a debate, I think it's interesting because we flipped positions a little bit. So I think traditionally Julian was more of a, like, I'm not saying you supported either more, but I would say like you leaned more towards Ronaldo. You respected his like game better than Messi's game before. Like, I'm not saying
There is a stat though that Messi has not broken yet. He's going to break it compared to Ronaldo. Let's not forget, Ronaldo had a better start to his second United career than Lionel Messi did in his PSG career. True,
very true.
And still to this day, if you look at the stats, he hasn't overtaken Ronaldo's goals. So if we look here, 44 appearances, 16 goals. Ronaldo has 40 appearances, 19 goals. And that's for United. So he's still ahead. Now, obviously, Messi's going to beat that. But it's not about that.
Yeah.
Ronaldo was actually going to go on to actually push on to have a decent record if they would have played the same style of football they did in his first season. Now, the second season...
I don't think it was a style of football, though. I think it was a personality clash with the new manager.
Yeah, so basically, they weren't... Because he didn't want to play that sort of football. He didn't want Ronaldo to be the vocal point.
No. It wasn't only that. It was more that... Okay. So from what I've heard about the dressing room, essentially, right, Ronaldo was off form, right? Which you expect. He's older, right? But he also didn't want to be a bench player. Right, and that's fine. If you have an argument with the manager, right, like you're unhappy with your thing, that's fine, right? But that's because it's you and the manager, right? So it's affecting one player, right? And but what apparently was happening was Ronaldo was creating a divide in the dressing room, and basically making other players take sides, which is why Ronaldo, like Man United was going through such poor form, because essentially like Bruno Fernandes, Diego Dallo, like all the other Portuguese players were like in their own little faction, like Fred and like a couple of other players apparently like were in their own little faction, and they were like, you know, starting to like rebel against the like manager, so they started playing poorly as well, and that's why like United basically had a divided dressing room, and that's why he got rid of him, because it was like, well, you're not just affecting your play now, right? You're not affecting your form, you're affecting 4 or 5 other players' forms, and you're affecting the whole dressing room now. Right, that's why like Ten Hag got rid of him, because it was like, you're toxic to the environment now. And because like Ronaldo's like, I think for me Ronaldo has, and it's part of his strength and also his downfall, is his ego is huge, right? Because you have to have an ego that big to believe you're the best and to play as the best. However, on the counter side of that, when your ego is that big and you think you're bigger than the club, you damage the club if you're not playing well. That's just the truth of it.
I get that Ronaldo probably had made some decisions that weren't great. I respect that. But let me just talk about the stats a little bit. Do you know in 2008 and 2009 when that was the last season he had with United, and he was in the form of his life, right? Going on to move to Real Madrid. Now he scored 18 goals in 30 matches roughly that season, which is actually quite a decent record considering he was playing a slightly different role with United. He didn't play the same role as he did in Real Madrid, right?
Winger, right? He wasn't the
So he wasn't like a guy that passed it to him and he scores. They weren't relying on Ronaldo all the time, right? But they did rely on him a lot. But they had a lot of other great players, United did. But then when he went to Real Madrid, he was just solely pass the ball to him, he will always score. Or like he will score you a winner. But then, do you know what's absolutely incredible? He comes back in 2021, right? And he gets the same stats he did compared to 2008. He gets 18 goals, but actually in 2008, he got 18 goals in 33 matches. In 2021, he got 18 goals in 30 matches. And he scored 6 goals in 7 games in the Champions League. 6 goals in 7 games. Like, he was literally carrying the team in that season.
I don't deny how good Ronaldo is, and I think like Ronaldo had the ability to stay for a couple more years as but the thing is, I don't think he wanted to play the role that he has become because he wants to be the main man.
Yeah, but let's also not forget, I think what really hit home with him is the fact that he was not going to play Champions League football, because remember United didn't make top 4.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the only thing though, because
I think that's some of it. Something
the thing
to do
is,
with it.
right? That's fine, and obviously hindsight's 2020, right? Because now obviously they are in a strong position to make a top 4 this year and make Champions League, right? But then the thing is, it's difficult to comment because of the way he left Man United makes it very difficult to comment on what he does or does not want, because essentially you've left a huge mark on your legacy. You've left to a pretty poorly supported league for what seems like money, right? And despite you saying on the top of your voice that I had loads of offers from lots of European teams, I don't believe that. Also, I don't care if you did, because you ultimately didn't choose that, right? And whether or not that's because they weren't big enough teams or the role you were being asked to do wasn't correct for you, or whatever reason it is, right? You didn't stay in the top leagues. You're not competing for anything that's like of any value, right? That to us in the West, right? So it's not Champions League, it's not any of the top 5 or 6 leagues. You didn't even go back to your home country. And another thing that's interesting, which is a very conflicting thing, is apparently he's been hired as part of his contract as an ambassador for the Saudi Arabia bid for the 2030 World Cup. Did you hear about this?
I heard that too, yeah.
Do you know who else is in the bid for that?
Not sure.
Portugal. So you're an ambassador against your own country who benched
But
you.
you know, I heard that, but I don't know how true that is, because some news had stated that it's not quite accurate. But only time will tell. But going back to your point where Ronaldo left to crapper league, right? Let's not forget he's 38 years of age, right? Ibra is 41. He's retired now, but he basically stayed in competitive football pretty much as long as Ronaldo did.
Yeah,
because he went to Milan and so on. So I mean, listen, we can't fault Ronaldo for just deciding that this is the time he wants to go. And also, I just want to add that these kind of players, there's only a few of them, 2 of them basically. And if they want to go for money, so be it. They're not going to get another opportunity like that. If 3-4 years down the line, if he wants to try and go to that team, they're not going to have him. He is still in a decent form to be able to play football, right? So if you were in his shoes, I'm sure you would have done the same. However, maybe you would have dealt with certain things differently in regards to United.
Right. Okay. I think we should move on from that because this is for some reason on my topics list it was Djokovic, and yet somehow it's become a Messi Ronaldo debate again. Because look, like following on from your point, I agree with you. In the same situation as him, I probably would have made the same choice. However, it depends on what I wanted my legacy to be, because I believe that Ibra stayed competitive because he wanted to prove that even at 41, he is still able to compete in one of the best leagues in the world. I don't think that's important to Ronaldo because he's already proven it. He doesn't need to prove anything statistically anymore. Right?
Substantially more than Ibra has. And also, Leo is 35. Yeah? 3 years younger. Now, where was Ronaldo when he was 35? Playing in different...
Yeah.
So he was playing in different countries, right? Competitively. Now, that's another thing. Before we end this, I just want to add that there have been a few people that I've spoken to and they totally disregard the fact that he's gone to multiple countries and played for multiple teams and actually performed well. Now,
I don't discount it, but I would say that for me, it's... You see, I don't like to bring that in because I agree that Messi going to PSG and Ronaldo going to Juventus kind of the same thing, right? Now, if Ronaldo went to Man United and turned it around and turned them into a title-winning team, or at least very heavily competitive team, then I would say that, you know, he cements his position stronger.
I don't think anyone could have turned United around. If
I
Ronaldo
agree,
couldn't,
but
I don't think anyone could.
If he could have kept his mouth shut, right? Yeah. And like, if he just didn't like, the debate is this, okay?
Because they're looking good now.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was still there.
So this is the thing, right? It's hindsight, because now that he's left, we can see what Erik ten Hag meant, right? And we don't know if this would have happened if he was just there and kept his mouth shut, right?
Yep.
We don't know. It could have been, right? But because he didn't keep his mouth shut and decided that he was going to do what he did, which is, I believe, self-motivated, right? Because you chose that route, unfortunately, we now look at it with hindsight. You've left the team. They're doing much better, right? If you leave a team and they do better, you were part of the problem. That's it. Right?
Well, it depends, because Ten Hag was not able to put into play what he wanted to due to restrictions, right? And that might have been Ronaldo, that might have been other players as well. So yeah, I guess that kind of stands. But I think at the same time, who knows? Maybe if he would have respected Ronaldo's wishes, it could have turned out good as well.
Could have. So, you know, but that's, you know, if what's buts
But-
babies.
but
Anyways, moving on.
let-
No, moving on. we can't keep talking about this, man.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is more football based. And I've got it up here. So it's the Premier League. I've got the table up. I'm just going to show the chat if this would actually. So we've got the Premier League here. Arsenal there, proud on top. But I would say it's been a very interesting round of football. Everybody in the top 4, top 3 dropping points. The only people picking up points, 4th and 5th place, Newcastle and Spurs. You guys lost. So when I say you guys, I mean Arsenal, because just to remind you, he's a gunner. So Arsenal losing to Everton, Man City losing to Spurs, and Man United drawing with Leeds. Like, everybody's dropping points in the top 4.
Like, if it was like, if United wanted to cement their title-winning hopes, it would have been against Leeds.
Yeah, they had.
They needed to get 3 points, and they just seem to bottle it when it matters. I just don't get it. They've been on like an incredible run, right? Now, yeah, they could have got a draw against Arsenal if it wasn't for that late winner, right? So they're up almost there, right? But they just seem to fall short. How many of these opportunities are they going to get? I mean, there's still a lot of games to play. But what if they get another one? Are they going to take it? Maybe not.
I don't think so. You know what? I think champions are made with just with games like this, and losing games like this are what decide championships. So I think United's run is like race's run, and they should be happy to try and be 3rd, maybe push Man City out of 2nd. Like, I think they should just need to defend from behind, but that's not the mentality they should have. Because if you have that mentality, you're going to lose and you're going to come into fifth, right? Because like Newcastle look like they're on form, Spurs look like they're coming into form, right? So like it's about the second half of the season. You guys should, like, now it's a kind of a 2-horse race, but Man City are dropping with the ball.
Do you know what really doesn't help? I don't mean to interrupt, but what really doesn't help is their goal difference. It's incredibly low for a team that is as high as they are, right? Newcastle get a win in the way their game in hand. They leapfrog United. Like 22-8, that's a massive difference. I mean, what are United doing? Are they conceding a lot of goals? Probably. Are they scoring enough? Maybe not. So that's something they need to look into.
I think they were hoping Workhorse might be the change, but I think they really should have tried and pushed for maybe a Harry Kane, or they need an out-and-out striker somewhere.
Do you know what I find funny? I was watching that Leeds game, and United weren't crossing the ball when Weghorst was in the box, right? As soon as he gets subbed off, Rashford comes on, 3 crosses, 1 out of 3 goes in.
Might be
What's happened? What's going on there?
Maybe it's just to do with the new player. And I'm also just going to bring up the table again. Speaking of which, the other end of the table. I don't know too much about all these teams. I think Southampton and Bournemouth are pretty dead in the water, although it's only one. So what's interesting is between 19th and 14th, there's only 4 points in it, right? Everton have had a change in managerial change in Sean Dyche and got to win against you guys. I think that was a very important win.
Impressive win as well, actually. To be honest, we didn't play to the best, but we needed to have a blip. We haven't had a blip all season.
And it's about how you bounce back. But let's not talk about you guys.
Exactly.
We already know how good you guys are doing.
Everton's next game is a Merseyside derby, so that's a big game. And considering how bad Liverpool have been playing, like they're just getting absolutely torn into pieces, and I feel really bad. So my hopes are not so high for their next game. And if Everton win that, they're out of the drop zone.
But I would say the other interesting aspect of this is the teams down here. So Leicester, Wolves, Leeds, West Ham, and Everton. All teams that you would expect to be high mid-table, to be honest. Leicester, obviously, like relatively recent winners. Wolves had Ademir Traore came back and was like, 7th, 8th last season? West Ham pushing for top 4 last season. Leeds I kind of expect to be here, to be honest. And Everton is the perennial, previously was the perennial 6th place team, 5th, 6th place. So I think they've all invested quite heavily. So it's I don't like to agree with everybody saying like the Premier League is the best league in the world, but it kind of is the best team in the world, given that how strong these bottom teams are. Anything else you want to say, or do you want to move into mid-table where we can discuss 2 other things? And then I kind of want to segue from one to the other.
Yeah, I think mid-table is a good idea because, like you said, there's not a lot of points in between the bottom 6 or 7 teams, so anything can really happen. It's not like when Derby got relegated at one point. They were substantially lower than all the other teams, so they had pretty much no chance to get up. But all these teams have a chance to be relegated or staying up.
So moving on to the next team we need to discuss, Liverpool. What is going on at Liverpool? What is happening at Liverpool?
If I knew the answers, then I think I would be a millionaire. But even the man himself, Klopp, doesn't know the answers, it seems.
Do you think it's just the loss of Sane that's caused all of this? Like they sold.
You mean Mane?
Mane,
right?
Yeah, Mane.
Yeah, the better one. So Mane, yes, he is an incredible player. I've always rated him highly, but I don't know. I think something's changed. Maybe bringing in, because they lost Mane, right? But then they brought in Nunes. I think they've also brought in Oxlade-Chamberlain to cover on the right. So there's been a few changes there. And I think in midfield, there's been a few changes. So it hasn't just been one player that they've kind of changed. Oxlade-Chamberlain's a credible player, but he's not really a Mane. He's totally different. So I think the team change has hindered them, but no one would have expected them to be as low as they are here. And for the fact that people were comparing Nunes to Haaland in the Community Shield after he outperformed Haaland and said that he will be the one that will be up there, and that was far from the case now. Those guys should just hold their head in shame.
Yeah, I think I can't really diagnose what's going on with Liverpool. I think it might just be a case of being too tired and pushing their squad too far, and that teams have kind of figured them out, and they lost one of their best attackers. Transitioning nicely, so they recently had a 0-0 draw with this team, Chelsea. I mean, they're going to segue to the next section, but essentially Chelsea also down here in the doldrums, 1 point ahead, but with one game more as well. So Liverpool have a game in hand. I just clicked into Liverpool's recent statistics. So it was a 0-0 draw, 2-1 loss to Brighton, and then a 3-0 drubbing by Wolves. Chelsea, pretty low scoring. I'm bringing up their stats right now for everyone to see. Like, pretty low scoring team out here. 1-0 win, 0-0 draw, 0-0 draw. Like,
well, actually, Haaland has still scored more goals than Chelsea, and I made that short a while ago, and he still scored more goals than Chelsea.
Go watch that short, and like and subscribe whilst you're there. But yeah, it's insane. I don't know what's wrong.
22 goals. What the hell?
I mean, do you think that their recruitment policy in the transfer window is going to stand them in good stead? They're spending billions and millions on these like randos.
Because of the restraints and the restrictions that they have, that was the main reason. Apparently, they've signed these players with longer contracts, because for this transfer window, yes, people have said they've spent more than £300 million, but they haven't actually. They've only probably spent 15% of that, but they've stretched it out to 8 years or 5 to 8 years, which makes it substantially less, and it fits into the fair whatever policy that is.
But I would say that, so somebody said very astutely, I would say, and I think it's a good point of, it speaks a lot to how, like, excuse my language, we're into the podcast enough so we can probably say a couple of bad words, but the shit scouting that's happening with Chelsea. Like, honestly, like, look, this is the point, right? If you had good scouting last season, you could have gotten Enzo Fernandez for 8 million, right? You've paid what, 105, 80 million for this dude just after the World Cup? It's basically what you're doing is you're basically watching football and playing FIFA, and when FIFA puts out an inform, you're like, oh, that player must be good because he's got an inform this week. Let's go spend 100 million on them.
Well, he plays the same as his shitter card.
Yeah, so like, yeah. I don't know. Do you think Chelsea are going to recover like next season? Let's say this season.
I've got a few points to make that I've kind of thought about when it comes to Chelsea. So point number one, the fact that they absolutely love to see how we scout. We as Arsenal fans, right? We scout for players, and it seems like most of the players we try and scout for, they get taken off under our fingers by Chelsea. They bid a bit more, 10 million more. I think we bid 70 million, which I think was a respectable amount for Modric, but he obviously went for the money. He's a great player. I don't think we missed out, if I'm honest. But having said that, I think another thing is with these long-term contracts, 5 to 8 years, a lot can happen. Now, let's not forget, Chelsea have gone through managers like, I don't know, what's a good saying to say about that? But yeah, anyway, let's just say they've gone through a lot of managers throughout the last 5 years, right? So the next 8 years is quite likely that Potter is not going to be there. And there's probably going to be 5 more managers. What is to say that those next 5 managers will decide not to play Modric, or will not decide not to play Enzo because it doesn't fit their style of play? So then what happens then? They're still paying some insane amount of money to these guys. And that's what I'm thinking about. This long-term contract thing doesn't really add up for me because of that. You get where I'm coming from? So it's a bit... They are investing for the future. Chelsea have always been that type of team that just push in money. Now, obviously, City are doing that to a far higher level. But obviously, Chelsea are keeping up quite well now. But I think they're probably going to be a top 4 contender for next season. They have to be with the team that they have, and they're probably going to recruit even more.
Have to is a bit strong. Speaking of Man City, good segue, Julian. So that's the next thing. So I'm just showing on the screen now the Jose Mourinho saying it's a disgrace regarding the decision.
What decision?
Punishments, or like
have they made the decision?
I don't know, but essentially, what do you think is going to happen with Man City with this financial fair play?
Well, I mean, they have quite a good barrister who has a good record of saving City's arse.
New short out now. Go watch it.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that, well, first of all, UEFA, they had a hearing with UEFA, and UEFA have finalized everything. Now the Premier League have picked it up, and the Premier League are asking for certain records, backdating to a certain time. And I don't believe, from what I've heard, that Man City are actually complying. They're not willing to just give it over that easily. They are asking questions. They are asking why, and why, right? A lot of whys, and they don't want to give it out just like that. Now I don't know if there are some loopholes. There probably are, and the thing is, if City have got away with this or will get away with this due to loopholes, then good luck to them. It's just a sad reality, but good luck to them, because it's like someone was saying that. Oh God, I was watching a podcast earlier today, and it would have been great to have been able to kind of talk about this, but I forgot what they said. So someone compared City's kind of the way they've done their financial things as a drug habit of some sort, and it's the same as actually just buying drugs, but you're buying players. So you're in access of what you're supposed to be doing. So it's practically the same thing. Now,
I mean, there's been before all of this obviously claimed out, there was this big thing about how Man City basically buy players to stop other teams buying players, and that their second team was strong enough to beat most people's first team, because they basically, like, anyone Arsenal, Man United or Chelsea scout, they just say we'll pay more, and they go to Man City basically.
And a lot of Arsenal players have gone to City.
I don't know. I think there was an interesting picture that was shown recently where they sort of showed that if Man City get points deductions like every single season, like the last, so the six Premier Leagues that they won would have been Man United, Liverpool, Man United, Liverpool, Man United, Liverpool for all of them. So that's going to be very interesting. But I personally think that's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to come to that. Now, let's not forget, Juve got relegated and they got their title taken off them when they were fixing matches. Yeah, that was pretty serious though.
Yeah, so that's fixing matches. I don't think that should be put into the same level as the financial fair play situation.
I agree. No matter how much I dislike Man City, I agree that that would be a bit too harsh.
So, and even till this day, Juve have got some court cases open trying to re-win that title, because they won it, but they obviously broke the rules and they got relegated. Now, the fact that happened, we know that it can happen. Teams can just, like, from a click of a finger, can actually just be pushed down. But because of the fact that this is somewhat of it's already been investigated quite thoroughly, right? UEFA have made a decision that there's not necessarily anything wrong. Now, the Premier League might end up coming to that. But, I mean, they've said they've broken 100 breaches or over 100 breaches. So the fact that they've said that, there probably might be some punishments. But I personally think it's going to be financial punishments. They're going to have to pay, like, a substantial sum, which Man City would do.
I agree. They might get fined and also get the same thing they put on them that Chelsea did, right? Where they had, like, a period where they're not allowed to use, like, transfers.
Exactly. And I also don't think it's fair to take away the titles that they've won, right?
Yeah, it's like how in F1, you know, how it was, like, unfair to strip Verstappen of his world title after the overspend from Red Bull, but you need to punish them properly, so you restrict them the following season, which is this.
The following season, maybe give them not one less game to play, but give them a point penalty for their next game or something like that.
So I don't think it should affect.
That'd be a bit too much. But I think next something that would restrict them from progressing, right? But not to the point where maybe point deductions and stuff like that.
So perhaps, like, you know, they need to have a bit of a clear out and, like, you know, reimburse some of them, like, make back, so, like, have a lot of transfers out and not a lot of transfers in to make up some of that, and then also, like, have restrictions placed on them for at least 2, maybe 3 seasons of, like, restricted transfer market access where, like, you're not allowed to go negative. So basically you can't buy more players than you sell in financial terms. So, like, you can sell 50 million, then maybe you can buy a 49 million total worth of players, but you can't, like, you know, go 51 million buying players. Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, whatever happens, happens. But like I said, I don't think this year's title should affect.
No,
They
I don't
shouldn't
think
affect City's
this season. I think you guys
points.
are just.
It'll be
playing
unfair.
So, moving
Yeah.
on to the 26th of February, the Super Sunday coming up. Two things to talk about on the 26th of February. The first thing, and we'll keep it on theme since we're talking about football, the EFL Cup final. The proper Mickey Mouse Cup that nobody cares about, but now people care.
Exactly what I was going to mention, that I don't really care about it, but let's talk about it.
I mean, it's only interesting because Newcastle might win some silverware.
Yet everyone is hoping United will, because they haven't won silverware in quite some time.
Well, everyone like, I used to be a United fan. Like, I was a United fan when Fergie was there. After Fergie left, I stopped being a United fan. Just saying. But there's
And
been
who do you support now?
I support Spurs, but we don't talk about that. But essentially, I think that I would want to see Newcastle win a cup. However, see, I'm conflicted because I always have a soft spot for Man United, right? But historically, Man United have won so many cups and silverware that it doesn't really matter if they win another cup. On the other hand, Newcastle winning is refreshing. However, it is kind of feeding into when the Arabs come and buy your club, you get cups. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't like that this first season.
Let's not forget the first season, they've not necessarily put a lot of input into the players that they bought. I mean, they've got Trippier and a few others, but it's next season where they take a massive step. So if they're going to do something this season by winning this cup, that's going to be a great achievement for them.
It is, and it might be to do with just having new owners and having this new impetus. Who you backing? I think I'm 50-50. I'm a bit neutral on this game.
Let's not forget, Newcastle have only lost once in the Premier League, and no other team has lost only once anymore. So they're doing extremely well.
I'm going to be Team Man United just because I don't know.
Newcastle love to park the bus. They're a really good defensive team. As we can see, they've conceded the least amount of goals, if I'm not mistaken. 12. Holy crap. 12 goals they've conceded in the Premier League. That's insane. The next highest is 18. Apologies. The next highest is 20, like far more. So I have a feeling that Newcastle might steal a winner somehow. But United recently have the quality to get the job done. But I slightly feel like Newcastle might somehow sneak a win.
I think I'd be happy with either, but yeah, I'm not really too bothered either side. And the other event that is happening on the 26th, or scheduled to happen on the 26th, is the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury possible third rescheduled fight in Dubai. What do we think?
Well, the fact that it's a third rescheduled fight says it all, really. I have a feeling that this could easily, this is just a conspiracy, but this could easily have been a setup. They wanted to build it up to this point, right? But none of them are really they're obviously making it out that it's not the case, right? But I have a feeling in boxing, and probably the only sport, they always love to build crap up, like to the point where it's gonna happen, then doesn't happen. It's gonna happen, then and then finally it happens. But both parties are ranking in the money. So that's a very usual thing that happens in boxing. So that's why part of me thinks that this could very easily be something that has been in the woodworks, right? But then I could be wrong. But that's just my opinion.
So you wouldn't have seen this, but I just put up the Google search for it, and the first thing you see is that Jake Paul was facing off with Derek Chisora, the actual boxer.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I saw that too.
And the fact that Tommy Fury didn't turn up.
Do you know what his the first time he didn't turn up to the press conference, because this is the second time he hasn't turned up to this third fight's press conference. The first time was, I don't know who made this up, but I don't even think it came from his mouth, but apparently it did. He said that he can't come because he needs the extra training to be able to prepare for the fight.
I mean, but this is just like, I don't know, man. This,
What the hell is that about? How are you
Like,
going to say something like that? And then the second time is Warren, the older guy, promoter's son, came, and he was like, they asked him why he's not here. He's like, he's not here because of private issues.
and so this is the thing, is that it's like, unfortunately, right, I don't like Jake Paul, but I have to respect what he's done. And also, to be in this game, right, and to be chatting so much shit, right, you have to turn up to the press conference. That's part of the deal. You have to build up the fight. You can't just like turn up. Nobody cares about the boxing. Like, I'm sorry, nobody cares about YouTube boxing. Nobody cares. Okay, nobody actually cares. It's entertainment. In the same way how, like, I told you that Formula One is now entertainment and it's no longer just sport, right? When Verstappen did his thing and we had that final like race, and like, you know, Julian's still not over it. I was laughing my head off at the time. But essentially, look, YouTube boxing is entertainment. It's not about who's the best boxer, because if you wanted that, you would watch boxing. But you don't watch boxing because most people don't care about boxing. Most people want entertainment. And so if you want entertainment, then you have to turn up to press conferences, and you have to chat a lot of shit, and you have to promote the fight. If you don't promote the fight, you're not keeping up your end of the bargain. Like,
That's very well said, Jamie. I couldn't have put it better myself. I think essentially, Tommy has been like hiding, running away, and I just hope that he gives Jake Paul what he's been looking for, a good beating. I think essentially that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, Tommy Fury is known for not producing on the night, so that could be his downfall. I think even if that goes against him, I think he'll just still pull it out of the bag. I don't see, especially if it goes to the end, I don't see Jake winning. If Jake somehow pulls off an incredible first round and gets a good shot on Tommy, which is highly possible, then Jake could win by knockout. I just don't see the pace, right? I think Tommy can pick up the pace, and I don't think Jake would be able to handle it. That's just my personal opinion. But kudos to Jake. He's done it extremely well, and he's actually had more time to train for this fight. The fact that it's been cancelled so many times.
I agree. This is the thing. I kind of don't want Jake to lose until he fights KSI, and then I don't care who wins or loses that fight, but I want to see Jake Paul versus KSI.
Okay, but who's going to be worse off if either one wins or loses? Who's going to be worse off? Because I personally think Jake Paul is not going to be worse off even if he loses or wins.
I think Jake Paul's worse off if he loses against KSI.
No. I'm talking about Tommy Fury. Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry. If we're talking about KSI, it's totally different. But Tommy Fury, like, if he loses or wins, he's still kind of a winner.
If Tommy Fury loses...
Oh, no, he's definitely going to be a laughing stock. But if Jake Paul loses or wins, he's still
and that's
a winner.
why I think Tommy Fury is shitting his pants. Because, like, Jake Paul is making a living off the fact that he's a YouTuber who's knocking people out who are actual fighters. And no one's an actual boxer yet, right?
Yeah. Arguably a better career than Tom Fury's.
Tommy Fury is Tyson Fury, the heavyweight boxing champion, arguably one of the GOATs of heavyweight boxing and boxing in general, right? And you are going to lose to a YouTuber who is a Disney star, like, and Jake Paul's been chatting so much shit in your ear and making everyone aware of this. Like, everyone's thinking about it like this. Like, you can't lose. You can't lose. And I think that will make him tight. So, I think Tommy Fury is actually bricking it.
Also, biggest paycheck of his career.
But money can't buy dignity, man.
I still think he'll pull through, in my personal opinion.
Like, if Tommy
But
Fury ever
it depends
gets
how he
L,
pulls through.
it's an L. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
but yeah, and then moving forwards from that, like KSI versus Tommy versus Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul, that becomes a fight that Jake Paul can't lose. I think KSI comes out of that better. Like, if KSI loses, I think he's got enough of a support network around him and people like him enough, and he's got enough like fingers in enough pies that it doesn't matter too much. Like he said, like I can take an L here. Boxing's not my only focus. I've got music. I've got Prime. I'm running a boxing company basically with Misfits. I've got the Sidemen.
But so is Jake Paul.
Is he though? Because I think boxing's the only thing Jake Paul's got.
No, he's got he's running a boxing organization as well.
Is it as good though? I don't think so.
It's close, but obviously not to the point where there's actually YouTubers fighting on the cards. He's actually having professional boxers fight. So there is a bit of a difference. Like, for example, on his undercard, I think he has Bardu Jack, who's actually a well-known boxer. And he's already had some interesting undercard fighters, but most of them are professionals, like I said, unlike the Misfits one, which they're not. Well, they are technically professionals because they're pros.
Is like, but what I mean is like, so but this is what I mean, right? So I think Jake Paul is more invested in boxing, so he would lose more if he loses against KSI than KSI would lose if he lost to Jake Paul.
Well, let's not forget Logan Paul drew and then lost, right?
Yeah, but then also he never got back. Like he got back in the ring against Floyd, but he never went into a proper like semi-competitive.
Well, because who are you going to fight after fighting Floyd?
True.
But then obviously what killed it even more is when Deji fought Floyd, which is basically just made the Logan Paul fight.
Floyd Mayweather is a separate podcast. We'll discuss this some other time. I think we've been going for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So I think we'll call it there.
I just want to shout out Anthony Joshua is making his comeback April the 1st against Jermaine Franklin. He's an American fighter. No, that's serious. So I have a lot of respect for the guy.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, that's true. Probably is a joke.
Okay,
I mean,
we'll discuss
some may say he's
time.
a joke.
Floyd Mayweather and Anthony Joshua will talk about this in the next podcast. Okay, right. Thank you guys for watching. I think it's been a great podcast. We've got a lot of topics. We'll split this up into multiple small videos. If you just want to watch chunks, we'll get some shorts out of this as well. And catch you guys next time. Like, subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like us to talk about and any other content you'd like on our channel. Peace.
Thanks for staying tuned, guys. Bye.
You think I'm frontin', you can run it back, yo, go on, run it back. You know that I run it. Everything you wanna do, I already done it.